Well, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning, you guys, and it's already getting very, very hot. But I want to show you a couple of things because I never want you to think that things are perfect all of the time. So today I'm going to show you some messy areas, some plants that I've killed, what I have done wrong, and how I hopefully will rectify it, because things are not always hearts and butterflies around here. So let me show you my bad. So over here, you will recall I planted some absolutely wonderful Dahlia tubers. These were going to be white, I think they were called Art Fair Dahlias. I planted them in the center of this wonderful urn. I had some wonderful gypsophilia that was great gray-green foliage. I still have, I guess, some white geraniums and some calibrachoa, some million bells. I came out and it was just heartbreaking. All of this was just lying over like this. It looked, if I didn't know better, it looked as if it needed water. But I knew I had watered it the night before and it didn't need water. So when it doesn't need water and it looks like it needs water, it's probably root rot and overwatering. And it's not so much that I overwatered this as that I wasn't vigilant before I planted it to make sure that this container had really good drainage. Because what had happened was, after a heavy rain and then my watering on top of it, I didn't actually put my finger in there to test it, and it just got way oversaturated because the water wasn't draining through. So whenever plants say they require really good drainage, that's why, because they just will literally rot at the root zone. So all of these tubers, sadly, have just turned to mush. And otherwise, had this had better drainage, they would have been spectacular. Fortunately, those that I planted in the ground are doing just fine. I'll try to salvage these white geraniums and maybe the million bells. But to do that, I'm going to have to check the drainage in this very, very heavy pot. So this is one of those things that I'm going to have to wait until I get some help from somebody else. So that was tragic, but tomorrow's a new day. So let's move over to this other area because I'm getting ready to rework this. And I may have showed you this in the past, but this area, the light changes quite a bit. This is right in front of my husband's office, or the studio we call it. And this changes, the light changes quite a bit. So I have to kind of move around, reconfigure, rework the plants that are in this montage of concrete and galvanized metal containers. So I just wanted to show you the before of what was going to happen. Notice I just did a video, which I'll be posting pretty soon, about these Centurion mosquito traps. So notice that I've got one up there as I'm getting ready to work in this garden area to prevent myself getting bit. So some of my favorite plants over here that are great for even 100+ degree temps like we're getting ready to have are these abelias. I love variegated abelia. This is a kaleidoscope, and I think this is a Miss Lemon abelia. And then obviously my beloved boxwood that looks great. There's a holly. But then I've also moved. I had another plant in this large concrete pot that I just wasn't happy with. And I'm moving around and pruning up and cleaning up and trimming my Eugenia topiaries. This is one that I've had for about 3 or 4 years. It goes into the greenhouse in the wintertime, but you see it's got some dead foliage on it. So I'm going to give it a really good feed. I'm going to top dress it with some compost, and then I'm going to plant it in this pot, but I'm going to leave it inside this plastic container. That's because when it starts to get cold, I can just lift that plastic container out to put it in the greenhouse. The other reason that I really like this, you guys, is, Stuart, if you can back up just a little bit, you can kind of see it's got a beautiful backdrop with a potager in the back. Now, why does this appeal to me so? Well, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but when I do my segments live at the Channel 4 studio at KFOR, they have a backdrop for me that I just love. And the backdrop has painted on it a view that is very similar to this, with a topiary that's very similar to this. And so when I kind of just tested it and put this in this pot, it so reminded me of that backdrop, and I love it. And so that's kind of what inspired this whole area here. Plus it reminds me of my friends at Channel 4. I've been doing more shooting here for them in my own garden than going into the studio. And I really miss all my friends there that I'm not seeing as regularly anymore. So this area is going to get a rework. I need to prune a bit on these big boxwood balls because I want this to be perfect. I'll show you my tricks for killing out some of the weeds in here, notably this clover and all these other guys that you see right here. These are Veronica babies from the Veronica that set seed that was growing, and I cut it back hard. So this whole area is going to get a rework. It really won't take me much time at all, even though it's hot today. I might even save it for tomorrow morning, but this area won't take me very long at all, and I will get immediate gratification after doing it. Now here's my third messy area. I'm showing you guys my warts and all. And I'll show you some examples of this, but over here I'm just making a big potting mess. So a lot of times I do what I call domino potting, repotting, or hopscotch repotting, where I'll take something out of a small pot and put it in a slightly larger pot that had a resident, which then is going to move on to another larger pot. And I'm just kind of doing this staggered planting, one plant moving into another pot, so I don't have to buy any more large pots. And then this whole area needs to be cleaned up. And I'm going to do that also. There's a little bit of a gentle breeze in this area, so maybe I will do this first. But I didn't want you to think that everything always looked garden tour ready in my garden, because it doesn't, especially now during COVID when I'm working on so many just projects in general. Excuse me. And it's kind of nice to be able to work on a project, leave out my mess to clean it up later. So I wanted to show you guys those things. Always check the drainage in your pots. If conditions change in an area where you've got a lot of container plantings, remember, container plantings can be moved. That was an epiphany for me years ago. So that area can be reworked. And then before you go out and buy new and larger pots, think if you can reuse the ones you've already had just by potting up. So there you go. There are 3 really messy areas of my garden. Now I'm going to go inside. And now I've got a special treat for you, because Stuart and I are getting ready to go over and shoot a video called It's All Stuart's Fault. So stay tuned, and you can look for that one tomorrow.